Welcome to He Say, She Say, the live stream where legal principles meet the heart. I'm Shar, founder of Law for Love, the most special place in the legal system in Atlanta. And after nearly 14 years as a divorce attorney, I realized that the very same tools that we use to end marriages can actually be used to save them. So I completely changed my path and now am here to help you navigate the challenges of love, commitment, and communication. Join us as we explore how to rebuild and strengthen your marriage one conversation at a time. Welcome. And I'm going to dive right in. It's going to take quite a bit of time for me to get through the material that I prepared for this particular discussion about something that is an undercurrent in too many marriages and that is not spoken about openly enough, particularly within the African American community or the Black community. And so we're going to take a dive in. And because of the nature of this conversation, I want to prepare you that you may be triggered and to exercise self care if you feel overwhelmed at any point during this presentation because of the subject matter that we're talking about. And I'm just going to ask you to bear with me as I get my screen up. Okay. Are you a woman who lost her sexual innocence at a young age and now find yourself withdrawing from the intimacy you once shared with your husband? Imagine if there was a way to reclaim your sexual identity, not just suppressing it or by continuing to live with guilt, but by understanding a powerful principle, which is the law of agreement. If this resonates with you, then you know what it's like to live with the haunting shadow of guilt, of shame, and inner conflict around sex and your existence as a sexual being. Perhaps you tried to fill the void by acting out behaviors that were introduced to you as a child, while everyone saw you as the good girl, right? You kept secrets and hiding your struggle behind a mask of perfection. For years, maybe even decades, you've sacrificed your own needs to meet the needs and expectations of everyone else. With this longing, this deep desire to discover who you truly are. You crave the freedom to be embraced and accepted, especially by your husband, without shame or judgment. But now intimacy has become a burden and sex feels like an obligation rather than an expression of love. Exhausted from years of feeling disconnected, you've detached from your body and you have distanced yourself from your husband, hoping to numb the pain within. Yet the yearning to experience true connection remains. You desire to be free in your sexual identity, liberated from the weight of what everyone else is expecting of you. You want to live in harmony with your faith, finding joy as a woman, as a wife, and as a lover who feels empowered to share her sexuality within the sacred bond of marriage. Imagine living a life where your soul, your body, and your mind are all aligned, a life that feels true and authentic to you. So, I want to share my story with you to help you understand how deeply intimate this conversation is for me. And in fact, part of the reason why I show up the way that I do in spaces where people are hurting because of my own very challenging travels through painful conversations and painful realities. So, for me, from a young age, I was showered with love by my family. I grew up rooted in faith with devout grandmothers who they taught me the they taught me a love for the Bible and how to hold the Bible close to me as an important part of my relationship with God. They instilled in me a fear of God that I am so thankful for the foundation of faith that my grandmothers gave to me as a very, very young girl. And my childhood was bright and it was filled with love and promise until an event shattered my innocence. The memories are foggy, but I recall that the events actually did happen. In fact, I lived many years of my life attempting to tuck these memories into the junk drawer of my consciousness. I did not want to remember them. I did not want to be defined by them. But what I did not understand until I really got honest with myself in a very raw and painful way was that facing the hidden parts of my life experience was the key to embracing who I really am, my true identity, and living free from guilt and shame. There was a next door neighbor who had a teenage son, and between our homes was a large wooded area. I was playing outside one day when the boy next door invited me to play with him in the woods. I was aware that one of his friends, another boy, was nearby watching what took place between us, but I can only remember sitting on his lap. I really don't remember any other details after that. I also don't remember what came first, whether it was that day in the woods with the boy next door or the night that I discovered late night cable TV, right? Like HBO after dark kind of thing. And I was only a little girl. I knew that what I was watching was wrong. I knew that what I did in the woods was wrong. And so I committed myself to hiding this new secret life of guilty pleasure. I began acting out with other kids. Sometimes I initiated guilty play. Sometimes it was another kid who initiated. The babysitter's teenage son, another little girl at a babysitter's, another little boy. These moments of acting out were few, but still very, very shameful for me. And there was even some abuse from older kids that was intended as harmless play. but it was downright humiliating. Everyone who I encountered in this space of secret guilty play, they were either very close to our family or they were actually related to me. They were family members. So by the time I hit puberty, and all of the kids in our neighborhood, they were already sexualized, either through similar experiences. I didn't know at that time. In fact, I didn't know until I began practicing family law how pervasive this issue is in so many people's lives. It happens so much. It's not even a hit or miss anymore. It's more like the majority of the life experience of many people since the age of cable TV. Well, the growing popularity of hypersexual R&B and hip hop music videos, the stakes for my little sexual expression, it just continued to grow as more opportunities for acting out presented themselves to me as an older child. So while I had an insatiable desire for sexual contact, I always managed to really maintain really high grades in school. And that's something that's I don't know how often that is the case, but a lot of times parents become aware that their children are struggling with these type of sexual uh, situations because they notice a decline in their school performance. Well, that wasn't the case for me. I was still very much an overachiever in school, and so that's probably the reason why my parents really never suspected that anything was going on, that their good girl had a whole nother secret life, had become a sex crazed teenager. I became so good at hiding my secrets from everybody. I became a pro at even lying to myself. And I hid my pregnancy for the entire 9 months. Most of the time during my pregnancy at 14 years old, I tricked myself into simply forgetting that I was pregnant at all. I've spoken about my fallout that happened in my family as a result of my hidden pregnancy, the shocking effect that it had on my entire family. I mentioned that quite a bit in the first book that I wrote and share about my life. But the shame and guilt of having a baby in the ninth grade didn't change the effect of all of the sexual impulses and desires that I still had going on inside. So I continue to have my secret little sexual exploits. And anytime I had an opportunity not to be supervised by an adult, or I got a free moment with a babysitter and having time away, and nothing changed except the fact that I had become a public spectacle and an embarrassment to my family. That's the only thing that changed with my pregnancy. Some people might think, "Oh my gosh, you should have learned your lesson." Well, it's so much deeper than that. And those of you who resonate with this story, you understand exactly what I mean. As a young adult, I lapsed in and out of periods of deep religious commitment and celibacy, and then I would abandon my faith to pursue sexual escapades. It was literally like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type of experience for me, uh, maybe a few months or a few years at a time. And then I would just flip to the exact opposite and act out. I had a deep and burning desire to be married so that I could finally experience sex in a socially acceptable way and no longer have to hide and sneak to have sex. So I started growing fearful in my church that I would be doomed as a lonely old church lady, because that's how I perceived many of the women in my church. Um, they were beginning to look like, desperate and doomed to be in church and alone, and I just rejected that as what my life would be. So it became obvious that um, these women that I watched in church and who I observed their behavior, they were just as lustful as I was. They just acted out primarily in their late night snacking, right? The type of self medicating, which is still lustful in nature, just not sexual. But at the end of the day, it is all self medicating, self soothing, and it's pleasure seeking behavior. I turned to books like Steve Harvey's books and read the stories of Star Jones and Mary J. Blige and how they began their relationships with their husbands. But what I found in reading this advice of Steve Harvey and these actual lives of Star Jones and Mary J. Blige, it gave me some comfort that there was some wiggle room, right? I didn't have to live by these strict rules of don't have sex before you're married. I played the game when it came to deciding that I would not live according to my faith when it came to purity and in dating. I would do what I had to do, not only to enjoy myself, but to get a man. So when I met my husband, I had just earned my undergraduate degree. And after more than I earned my undergraduate degree, after more than 10 years of on again, off again school, my life was full of drama. And again, I share that openly. My life is an open book. But our relationship was just hot and heavy lust fest, from day one. And it kept me up past my bedtime, and I was having fun, and I was happy to have someone who I could enjoy. And I completely abandoned caring about what anyone else had to say or think about my choices and the way that I live my life, because I had finally found my guy, right? And we were going to be together, period. That's all that mattered to me. So, um, even during our time dating, our relationship was downright tumultuous, like high impact collision all the time. The guilt for me of having sex outside of marriage, it would build up, and then I would explode on my fiance at the time in these fits of rage because of the conflict that I was experiencing due to seeking out the pleasure of this relationship and sex with a man who wasn't my husband, and this very deeply rooted faith and desire to be close to my creator. So, as though being in a long distance relationship wasn't hard enough for the two of us, we maintained our relationship while each attending graduate school. I was in law school and he was in chiropractic school during a 2 year, well, actually 3 year long distance relationship for us. But it at the time it kind of made sense to be with someone who was also in graduate school and committed to such a demanding uh, type of relationship and study schedule that graduate students live with. So, in my pursuit of holy matrimony and keeping my man, I slipped away from my faith big time. I was still in law school when we married. The first major purchase I made after we married was I purchased a Bible with my new married name on it. Like, this was such a big deal because I finally saw a path forward to like consolidating or unifying or aligning or harmonizing my sexual desires with my faith. And I felt like I had finally accomplished the task, right, of securing my sexual outlet and sanctifying it under a marriage commitment. So now I could get back to the business of my relationship with God. Boy, was I really short sighted with that. It wasn't long before my little plan blew up in my face. And although we maintained speed in the bedroom in our relationship, the constant fighting persisted between us. And my husband withdrew from me, only infuriating me more. And what was the what was the problem? I did everything I was supposed to do to finally be free from sexual guilt. Things came to a climax when I experienced extreme burnout and depression after my mother and my brother passed away. And it was at that point that I didn't care if my marriage failed. I didn't. Life was hurting too much to care about making marriage work. And I was ready to experience love and life and the meaning of life in the face of so much pain. At first, I blamed my husband for everything. Now, I'm not here to say that my husband doesn't have his ways that we have to navigate in our relationship, but during this place in my life and this season in my life, he was the boogeyman. He was the reason for all of my suffering. I blamed him for everything. And there was nothing he could do to make me happy. Absolutely nothing. I literally had women tell me that I was living the life they only dreamed of having a career as a lawyer and having this fine husband and having his baby. But the reality was that I grew only to hate my husband. Somehow he had failed to fix what had been broken inside of me all along. And that is when I finally did the unthinkable and abandoned our bedroom. What I discovered in the basement of my home, my little hideaway, is what ultimately healed the distance between me and myself, me and my creator, and me with everyone else in the whole wide world. I learned how to deal with the guilt contract that was creating the Tasmanian devil tornado of strife in my life. This is exactly how I finally rid myself of internal conflict and how I have matured in my emotions to live a life free to be myself, to fully embrace people for who they truly are, to infuse everything in every moment in my life with meaning, love, and laughter. And all of this I learned and developed from my home having done the unthinkable as a Christian wife, because that was kind of like that last little barrier of don't you dare, the Bible says, Paul says, and I broke the ultimate rule of being a Christian wife when I took off to the basement. And so that is how I found the space and the time to confront myself and to develop this powerful 3-step legal process for healing. Through this journey, this simple and powerful legal process transformed my life. And it is all rooted in what I call the law of agreement and what I teach as the law of agreement. And it's simple. It's looking at the contracts that you create when you come into agreement or develop a belief with something that's simply not true, something that's limiting. For me, when I assessed the contracts that I had with people pleasing, with pretending, with hiding, with secrecy, what I was doing, I was setting myself up for frustration and resentment and really needing to self medicate even more because it hurt more not being myself. And identifying all of these agreements that I made with things that are not true wasn't step number one. Step number two is the contract revocation process where you no longer agree with lies. You no longer agree what's not serving you. You no longer agree with untruths that are keeping you in hiding, afraid, ashamed, and guilty, so that you're not showing up in the world as yourself. And then step number 3 is the contract reconstruction, where you build a brand new empowering agreement that is aligned with your true identity in every aspect of your life: spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, and social, where there is no conflict because of the work that you've done in reconstructing your contracts with your belief systems, yourself, the things that you believe. And so I'm inviting you, if you are a woman, a wife, who my story resonates with you in any kind of way, I'm inviting you to this transformative ladies only conference call that is designed for you, wives who are seeking healing and freedom. This call is absolutely free, but due to the personal nature, only women who complete a brief introductory call with me and an online interview will be invited to attend. It's going to be intimate, it's going to be confidential, and it's going to be where we can be really, really raw and get some healing in this space together. So I invite you to check out the application in the description box and take the very first step towards living in alignment with your true self. So that will end the actual presentation. And I thank you and appreciate you here in the community for being a part of the journey, being a part of helping other wives heal. This conversation, it should be something that's not happening as often as it really is happening. But these are the shadows that are living in the minds, not only of women, but of men who have gone through, who have been exposed to sex too young, right? And who've never had an open and safe space to talk about what that did to them in developing their personality and their habits. And so, thank you for sharing my story with me and for being a part of the Law for Love community, where we are advancing the power of the law to promote love for healthier families, communities, and love that will transform the world. I love you all and look forward to serving you very soon.